Welcome to Meet the Masters of Insurance webinar series. I'm Lawrence Geller, the founder of For Advisors Only. This is the 45th of what we expect to be a great many webinars with Canadians who've dedicated their careers to learning the art and science of insurance sales and service. Webinars in this series are now scheduled through the end of this year, and more are being added to the schedule daily. Over the years, I've observed that every successful insurance agent who I've met has succeeded differently, even if they're in the same field, deal with similar clients, and even if they're related or in business together. That's what makes the sale and servicing of insurance one of the best careers that I can imagine. It's possible to become a success in our business with diligence, integrity, and experience. With this webinar series, we intend to prove that any type of person can succeed with time and hard, thoughtful work. Our goal is to create a video record for each of these masters of insurance so that some of their expertise and experience will be available to anyone who'd like to learn from. Today, we have Laurie McNeil with us. Laurie McNeil is the founder and chief executive officer of MacNeil Benefits, a preferred senior partner with Group Health Benefit Solutions and SLM Group Consultants. Laurie joined the employee benefits industry straight out of university. Prior to establishing SLM Group Consultants, he served as senior management positions with a major North American insurer and a large national brokerage and consulting firm. Working with both sides of the industry has given Laurie a significant leverage with SLM Group Consultants. They design, implement, and provide ongoing service and employee benefits and retirement programs to companies of all sizes. Formed in 1994, SLM Group Consultants are headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia. They base their business on building many long-term client relationships. SLM Group Consultant couples their expertise in benefits management with the highest level of customer service. Simply put, their knowledge and dedication to client service makes plan concerns disappear for employers and their employees. Dave Patriarch will be interviewing Laurie McNeil. We've now, I should say, we've actually now booked interviews through the end of March of 2025, and new dates are being added regularly. But if you know of anyone with whom we have not yet spoken or we haven't yet interviewed, please contact me, and we'd be happy to speak with them. Over to you, David.
Thanks very much, Lawrence, and welcome, Laurie. Here we are again, doing another interview, and we are always starting in the same spot of how'd you get started in this business? And I kind of joke about it every time. You know, we all were little boys or girls, and one day we dreamed about being in insurance, right up there with being doctors and firefighters and everything else. But that doesn't seem to be the real story. So, Laurie, let's get started with how'd you stumble into this? Lawrence gave us a little bit, but help us understand how you picked the benefits and fell into this market.
Actually, thanks, David. Benefits picked me, and I tell everybody it's 40 plus years ago, but the plus is 13, so it's a long time. I really wasn't interested in getting into the employee benefits field, but I was recruited by a placement agency. I went into this placement agency to look for a job for a year that would give me an expense account in a car so I could save my money and go to Australia with my girlfriend. And that was the plan. And the guy told me initially, the guy for the placement agency, I was in a waiting room with 12 people, and he picked me out of the room to come in and talk to him. And he said that he played on my vanity, and he said that I had I guess mostly because of my physical size, I'm a little shorter than the biggest guy in the industry, which is you. And anyway, he said I had presence and command of the room. And I bought that. So I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. So anyway, I went on this interview. He said, I want you to go to this interview with a life insurance company. And I said, I'm not the least bit interested in getting into the insurance business, because I perceived sitting around a dining room table after supper selling life insurance to somebody, and that wasn't something that appealed to me. And but he said, go on this interview, and it's group benefits. Go on this interview, and if you don't like it, come back here and I'll get you a job selling cornflakes or soup or something. So I went on the interview, and the guy within the hour offered me a job and explained that it was as a group rep, and I would not be not selling to companies. I would be selling myself to brokers and consultants to try to get them to work with Zurich Life. That's who I joined. Anybody out there that's never heard of Zurich? They were sold to Manulife years and years ago. But so I started off as a Zurich group rep, and I had some immediate success because I was calling on brokers, and it turned out that the brokers were anxious to talk to group guys if you were any good. And I really played on my so-called presence and just basically develop personal relationships with a good number of small brokers in Nova Scotia. I started in Halifax, by the way, and so I worked the Nova Scotia market and small case, 10 to 50 lives, but I wrote a lot of it, mostly because I built these strong relationships with these people. So.
And people often talk about the East Coast as, quieter, less opportunities, and maybe a harder market than other areas, which is contestable because there's just more competition in the big cities. So where did you get your education in that first part? Like, was Zurich helping to train you as to, what group was, how it worked, and what your unique offering was?
I personally believe, and I've looked at it over the years, I've never had a better training ground in my life than Zurich Life, because what they did is when they hired you, head office let the branches do the underwriting, set the rates for anywhere from 10 to 50 lives. So for 3 months, I sat down in front of the first electronic calculator I've ever seen and was given data and taught how to calculate life and disability rates and how to set extended health and dental rates and use claims experience. So by the time I hit the road, I was really knowledgeable about the workings of the group insurance market. I understood what the underwriters were looking for. I understood what I could do what the story that I could tell to the various brokers and consultants out there. And it was just a wonderful training ground.
So then you spent some time with Zurich. How long were you there for?
I was there for 6 years, and then Mutual of Omaha came to me and said they were going to open up a branch in the Maritimes, and they offered me the job as the manager, and I jumped on that. And so all of a sudden, but I talk about, and we'll talk about later about the team I built. It's very much we have been very successful, but when I started off, it was very much an I thing. And I'm reluctant to be talking about me, but I was a one-man operation in the Maritimes.
And for the people that don't know, Mutual of Omaha was an American-based company that had come into Canada. We had Aetna and Cigna and kind of a whole bunch that kind of crossed the border. And they were around for a few years. We're going to talk more about that. And they were famous for Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. So anybody who was kind of over maybe 40 or 50 would remember, maybe 50, maybe 60, would remember it was kind of like the show you watched like Disney, on, I don't know what it was, Sunday nights or whatever. And it was, like a National Geographic style show. And Mutual of Omaha was kind of a household name in North America, really, because of that show. So you had kind of a neat pedigree behind you. So explain kind of what that job looked like and where it took you.
Basically, I ran the Maritimes for about 20 months, and there was a one-man operation in Vancouver that the guy ran Western Canada, but he had a strong team with him. And after 25 years, he left, and the boss at Mutual of Omaha apparently really liked me, so he said, and after 20 months offered me the job as district manager for Western Canada, and I was 30 years old. And my management skills was managing the secretary I had outside my door in Halifax. So I went from running a one-man operation to 60 employees. And boy, I'll tell you, I made a lot of mistakes the first year or two, but I only made them once, but I had to learn. and
Th-
learn, but basically they just threw me in the deep end and they said, we know you'll do fine. I used the same principles that I had in the Maritimes of developing relationships with brokers. When I started calling on the big houses in Vancouver, I knew that was going nowhere because the Manulifes, the Sun Lifes, and all the big guys were there. And even though my ego said I'm better than them, they had the clout behind them and they had the long-term relationships. And I saw that really wasn't the market I was interested in. So I did some research and found out who the secondary markets are, the players that were life guys who did group business, that type of thing, or smaller group brokers.
And Mutual of Omaha was in that smaller market. Yeah, I mean, they were kind of
10,
like the
10 and
3
up,
to 10 and up. Okay.
we had some huge cases because my predecessor wrote a lot of he didn't do anything under 100 lives.
Oh, wow.
And he only quoted on big stuff and he wrote a lot of it. And when I came to the Maritime, the biggest producer I had at Mutual of Omaha was a guy named Michael Welton. And Michael came to me one day because when I started working in Vancouver, I just went down to 10 lives and called on the secondary market and wrote a lot of business. And this Mr. Welton walked into my office one day and said, I used to send you data all the time, or specs, and you would decline the cases because there were 40, 50 lives. And now I just lost a case to you. I said, well, you didn't lose it to me. My predecessor did that. So he said, I'm happy to work with you. And I wrote millions with that guy over the years, but because I built a personal relationship with him. I had probably I counted 8 very strong personal relationships with the secondary market, the brokers. I mentored them, I helped them. One of the interesting things in the secondary market, and even the big market, some of the cases that I dealt with, the broker and consultant would always put the group man in front of the client. Let me present the quote. Let me close the case. Let me present the renewal. I would never let that happen these days.
Yeah, you don't see that.
Yeah. Times have changed. I'm not going to put somebody in front, And anyway, I did that and I got to know a ton of the clients. So when I wound up going out on my own, there was some of these past relationships with people I knew that gravitated to me over the years.
So by this time, you've now already kind of specialized in the group world because of the jobs with insurers. You've kind of targeted the small to mid to larger market place,
Yes,
and really focused on that. Built up the relationships, and I guess that having the opportunity to present to the clients with the advisor saying behind you, kind of, that was great experience. I mean, that kind of really maybe shaped the next part. How long were you at Mutual of Omaha before you went out on your own?
15 years. And
you're a slow learner then.
Oh yeah. Part of the advantage I had with doing it on that basis is that I learned so many things that I said to myself, if I ever went on my own, I wouldn't do that this guy just did, and I wouldn't do that, or I do this. I take the pluses and minuses from these brokers. I had won a 100 life case one time with the broker that came in, asked me to present the quote. He said, this guy is leaning toward London Life, and I went in and I really turned it on with this guy, and I knew I clicked with him. And it was a Friday afternoon, and I usually didn't work Friday afternoons, but I went in and made this presentation to the guy, and he takes his pen out and he clicks it. He said, okay, so, and he was telling us that he's planning on going back and talking to London Life, and he's going to compare the quotes. And I just really went for the close, and I knew he was there. So he takes the pen out. He said, what's the next step? And the broker steps in. He said, well, think about it over the weekend, and we'll call you on Monday. So he said, okay. So he takes his pen, puts the top back on, and puts his pen down. And I went outside, and this broker was like 5'6", a foot shorter than me, and I wanted to grab him by the neck and just. So I said, well, I may not do that if I ever went on my own. And I learned a lot of pluses. There were some guys that were really good and had some really good ideas. I would take them. I would learn from the mistakes that these other guys did. So by the time I got out there on my own, I had in mind my idea of how to be the ideal consultant broker. I'm very much, even today, a specialist. I do nothing else, or we do nothing else but group benefits, and that's it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking about that kind of before about specializing and service and setting yourself apart and learning from all these different opportunities and stuff. So what was the catalyst for you kind of saying, okay, I'm going to take the next step and go out on my own?
They came in and they came in from Toronto and said they were announcing the appointment of a new head of group operations in Toronto. And I said, well, I better like him. He said, well, I think you do, because it's you.
Yeah.
We're going to name you head of. And I said, no, you're not.
So by now you're settled in Vancouver. You've moved from the East Coast to the West. You've gotten married, and yeah,
beautiful home, and I've got. I really liked Vancouver, and I liked visiting Toronto, but I couldn't imagine doing the Gardiner Expressway or driving up to Mississauga every day and whatever. And I really felt at that time there was so many of the American insurers were leaving the Canadian market, and I said to myself, where did I want to be out of a job, here or in Vancouver, here or in Toronto?
Yeah.
So I stayed, and when I didn't take the job, they went a different direction, and it wasn't to my advantage, and it really got to be untenable to stay there. So in '94, I went on my own.
And your gut feeling was right, because Mutual of Omaha did pull out very soon after that.
Sold to RBC, and RBC broke up the group company, so I would have been out of a job.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, they had Mutual of Omaha had one of the most generous compensation packages, and I was making big money, so I would have been the first guy that they would have
cut
gun for,
So you went from the big money and the 60 employees plus, and so instantly you built a massive team and paid yourself a fortune to start out on your own, correct?
I don't remember it that way.
Yeah. So tell me, what was it like? Because that's the question that often gets asked is, what are those initial years like and everything? And
I was on my own. I had enough in the bank to live frugally for 3 months, because I was living large, making good money, and I thought, boy, this is a great life, and I'm going to do this till I'm 65.
Yeah,
never happens in the business. Once you hit 50, now that's it. They're looking for somebody else. But anyway, I worked out of my spare room. I met one client that I really, really liked, and he ran a big long-term care facility. And when he heard, I presented the quote to him, sold him, did all the renewals. The broker would always get me to do the renewals because there was always rate increases. So I went in, but I developed a really strong personal relationship with this guy. We really liked each other, and to this day, he's still one of my closest friends. And when I went on my own, he said, I want you to deal with me. So let's, and he appointed me, and immediately gave me $10,000. Well, there's another little bit. And then he basically, I went to him because I was a big believer in developing centers of influence. I don't make cold calls. I've never made a cold call in my life. People don't believe that, but I don't like rejection, and I just don't make cold calls. I've called a lot of people after I get strong referrals. That's not a cold call.
They're warm calls.
Yeah, they're warm calls.
Yeah.
So I went to my buddy, and he was the king of long-term care. Everybody looked up to him. He was the same size as, he was about an inch shorter than you. So but he had this big, and he looked like Elvis Presley. To this day, he's in his 70s, still with Elvis hair, and everybody loved him. And I developed a relationship with him, and through him, he started calling his associates, saying, you really got to deal with MacNeil. This guy really knows this stuff. And I made to step back for a minute, Mutual of Omaha was one of the few insurers that would underwrite long-term care facilities because claims experience was terrible. But I really made myself an expert in long-term disability claims. So I understood how a claim was being paid, why it was being paid, why it was being rejected. There was nothing I didn't know about the LTD claim process because I invested the time.
And that's a big part of long-term care, because the disability incident rate is huge, And
$10 a hundred.
I was going to say, and the rates are crazy. So you picked this kind of, so you specialized in group, then you picked this subspecialty of industry of long-term care, so nursing homes and everything else, and kind of went after that through referrals. And does that still build, like today, does that still make up a big part of your block?
It's a huge block. It's a huge piece. And I'm lucky enough. I've got 4 clients that have been with me 30 years, and 2 of them are north of $4 million in annual premium. The first case I wrote, it was 160,000 in premium, and I thought, wow, this is great. And it's over 4 million today because acquisitions or whatever. So I kept that with the service team I built.
And with and I mean, we're only seeing that area. So you took that little niche of underserved, difficult to find, and we've had lots of those opportunities over the years. Not-for-profits for decades could hardly ever get group insurance, high risk businesses and stuff, and we've seen some real unique people in those areas. So you kind of learn more about that. Again, where's your education coming from on all this? I mean, obviously hands-on experience, but are you do you have mentors? Do you have educational events and sources you go to or went to along the way?
The one thing that I regret over the years is being a one-man operation in the Maritimes. Even when I was hired by Zurich Life, the manager was a producing manager, so he had no time to be really managing. So I had to be self-taught. I had to really throw myself into the deep end. I learned every self-help book. Back in those days, there were self-help books everywhere. I read them all, and every book I would glean something that I could use, and just really studied the product line. So I made myself an expert, and once again, just used what the people were telling me, use your presence, and I basically went in and I developed a lot of really strong relationships. And when I met people, it was obvious that I was very knowledgeable about my field. I specialized. I didn't have to be knowing everything about every other product, but I basically really taught myself, learned how to do it, read every management book, that type of thing, because I didn't have a mentor. I basically just even when I was out west, I was a one-man operation with 60 employees, but nobody to lean on,
And I don't think that's uncommon. I mean, unless you went through the old London Life Freedom 55 group school, Great West Group School, or Sun Life Group School, most of us were kind of self-taught. You just try and be a sponge and learn as much as you can and ask a million questions. And I'm sure you had, at Zurich, whatever, people in underwriting or actuarial or, whatever you could go to. As time has gone on, your business has grown. You've added your kids to the business. They've followed in your footsteps. You've obviously mentored them and helped educate them. Is your focus still the same? Has anything changed? Or are you doing things kind of the same way you did back then?
The focus of how we get business hasn't changed, but the block of business I have has expanded. But it was I think solely because of the personal relationships I built. For instance, there was one HR manager of a long-term care that went to work for one of the municipal groups here, and as soon as she got in and saw the benefit plan, she called us. So I went in and we closed that. She had an assistant after 2 years that went on to another municipality, and she took me with her. And all of a sudden, we've got a handful of good-sized municipal groups, the cities, and so. And then the other thing which has been of value, I've wound up mentoring a lot of guys because of my experience and guys that I've met, and I've let people come to me for advice, and I've given it to them. And over the last 20 years, 5 different advisors have retired, didn't have a succession plan, and they were basically life guys with a group block, and I wound up purchasing their group block. So I've acquired all of this business over the years. I've maintained 92% of it. I was thinking, you asked the question the other day what the retention was, and it's 92%. There was one guy when I went in to meet him to say, I'm just purchased the business and I'm your new consultant. And I knew this wasn't going to go anywhere because number one, he had an attitude. Number two, he was 5'2". He took one look at me and I was
intimidation factor.
The guy I bought the business from was 5'5", and I said, "Oh, this is going nowhere." So, gee, I got fired. What a surprise! But
It happens. It happens.
so with acquisition and just keeping my ear to the ground, because there's people out there selling, selling the blocks, moving on, and I really had my ear to the ground, and with the people that I knew and the centers of influence I built. I keep using that word, but that's what it is. I basically got 3 or 4 people that I've really got developed relationships with, and they refer them in. Another way that I've really developed a good block of business is as a specialist. I've gone to other specialists. I have 3 top-notch financial planners, and when they're top-notch, they deal with people with big money, and I've developed relationships with them, personal relationships where they've said, I've said to them, these guys, Joe Smith, he's worth $20 million. He's got a business, and I'd really like to get a kick out of some of his business. And I have one client, one financial planner that's put 8 cases with me. So I've written 17 groups with these 3 financial planners over a 6-year period.
Now,
and some of it's really nice business, because all they do is say, "Oh, we got the guy for you," and introduce me, and it just goes from there.
And so that comes up quite a bit about people go, how do you ask for referrals? How do you find these centers of influence? And it's not as simple as just calling up somebody and saying, "Hey, give me your group business,"
no.
or whatever. It's a give and take. You're maybe passing leads to them. You're helping educate them so that they know what you know. That in itself, it takes a long time to cultivate that relationship and trust. Really, is what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, it's hard. Parking vanity aside, these 3 financial advisors all came to me because they met me at seminars and just introduced themselves, and they were looking for business too, and they were trying to see if they could help me, and so I developed a relationship with them, and I have referred business to them, so it's a 2-way street. As I said, I'm very much a specialist, but if I have an owner, and I said, "Look, you should talk to my financial planner," and that type of thing, and so it's been a give and take. I've been very, very much been on the plus side of this, because I've got a lot more revenue out of it than they did. But the fact is that I've really expanded my centers of influence. I've gone to the financial planners. I've gone to the key owners of blocks of business and got them to work with me. And I've got strong referrals. And I just meet them through, when it all started with my buddy that introduced me to one guy, and then the next thing it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We quite often, I would say, you hear the term centers of influence, and people immediately go to like the life insurance side, and it's lawyers and accountants, are the people. Yeah, and my whole thing was no. For me, for small business, it's always been HR people, bookkeepers, maybe they're part-time working in multiple places, and existing clients, especially HR people that move on. And that sounds like what happened with you with the municipalities. And you were good enough to introduce me to one of your clients that spoke at our Western event last year, sharing kind of some of her stories and experiences and stuff. So that center of influence circle can mean lots of different things, obviously.
Yeah. Even like the relationship that you and I have, I had a top financial planner, another one that I developed, and he said, "I'd like you to do my group plan." And I said, "Sure." So I went to the market and got quotes, and then I went to him and said, "Look, I'm not going to be able to service it." And I described this small, very quiet, demure agent in Toronto that could call on him and set this guy up. And then I gave the business to you, and you walked in, and the financial
his first question was,
says, "I think you may have lied to me, Laurie."
Yeah. And the first thing he says is, "Are all you guys this size?" It's true. There's actually it's kind of a funny story. Laurie and I met about 8 years ago at an event in a unique kind of way. Ask me offline sometime and I'll tell you the whole story. But we got together. I picked him up at the airport when he was in town, and I was driving a little Porsche, and I'm 6'7", now down to about 6'6", and Laurie's maybe an inch or so shorter than I. And the two of us were climbing into the car, and we both looked at each other, just laughed, as kind of wondering about the people looking at us.
There's
Trying to
30 people saying there's no way they're getting with luggage. There's
with
no way
luggage.
they're getting into a Porsche. So,
Yeah,
and we
totally.
and did.
Yeah, you make a mark. So what's changed over time? So from the beginning days, I mean, once you establish a core of business and you've got more referrals and they're referring stuff, are you doing the same old thing you always did, or are you doing things a little bit different these days? Or
I'm doing the same old thing, recognizing that the core to it is service. I developed a very effective service team. I'm very lucky to have a very close relationship with my two kids, and they're in one. My daughter's been in 17 years, my son's been in 20, and they're stars. They've they've really liked the industry. They're good at it. We developed a service model that we've stuck with over the years. The clients don't call a call center if you have a frustration. Don't go to the insurer. Go to us, and they do. And I was just thinking about it last night. I had a problem with my cable and my internet connectivity. Couldn't find anybody to talk to. Frustrated the heck out of me. And it just comes down to if you were so many people now want to go online or do benefits the easy way, whatever. That's never going to replace what we do. We may have some people buy a client and say, I'm going to get rid of you guys. I can save 10% by just going online. Well, the first time you have a problem, good luck with calling a call center or going online to try to resolve your issue. And we sell that message very effectively. So
and
I've been able to.
that's big. Like, I mean, there's a lot of concern. We've seen over the years companies like Zenefits come across the border, promising a fantastic all-tech solution. And in reality, the the tech isn't the problem. It's like you said, the lack of service that's a problem.
Yeah.
And you've built out your team now, so the kids are in the business as well, and they're both very different people. Like, I mean, I know both your kids a little bit from our events out west and meeting them, and they both have different styles and bring different things to the table. And they've carried on the business, also doing some acquisitions of
Yeah.
maybe some of the smaller groups, and as people have retired. So when you kind of see all that, um, what what would you say was the hardest learning? This is a hard question, maybe, but the hardest learning curve for them. Like, what was the one thing that you felt you had to get through to them to kind of take it to the next level? Was there kind of an area where you kind of went, okay, you got to get out and be more relationship driven, or less salesy, or more technical, or what? I don't know.
They've always been able to develop their own centers of influence, and that's led to business with them. And but the frustration that they had early was when we would go to market having to deal with insurers, and they didn't have the relationships that I had. So we had to invest some money and get them to go to Toronto and sit down with these insurers and develop personal relationships with them. My daughter is very, very effective in that. She's tall and beautiful, and so she's been able to sorry, I got a leg cramp. I'm just jumping around here.
No problem.
Anyway, she's been able to develop really strong relationships with the insurers. That was a big frustration for them, is how do I deal with these people? And they're driving me nuts. And we would have reps calling on us, and the quality of group rep these days is not very, very strong. Most of the markets, especially out here.
A lack of training and we lost a lot of people, I feel like, during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
it's been kind of trying to get bodies in, and the training I find lags a little bit. And the one thing I've noticed is there's not the continuity of like corporate knowledge. So, when your rep leaves Manulife or Sun or Canada Life or whoever, that information is gone with them. It doesn't seem to pass on to the next generation behind them, which is sad. And so I'm going to go back to your mentoring of other people in the industry, as well as your kids. I think the more that we can pass down, and quite frankly, you and I and lots of others have been educators of our account executives as well. Like, I mean, it's a two-way street. They're teaching us, we're teaching them. There may be technical, we may be, relationship driven or whatever. I think that, hitting on that mentoring thing is important. Um, So, who else are you? We didn't kind of go through this the other day too much, but what do you do in your spare time and stuff? As you're not living in benefits all day, but is there other stuff you do that kind of touches on the benefits world or that distracts you from things?
I'm not a sports fan. I'm a sports fanatic. I'm a
Yeah.
huge baseball fan. I have in university, my degree was my background was mathematics. So I'm huge in statistics. So I just go in and I'm always looking at the history of baseball, looking at statistics, hockey, football, basketball. I take up a lot of time doing that.
So I knew the baseball thing. I didn't know the math thing. So how much does that help in doing your job of, well, calculating renewals and
Oh,
analyzing
yeah,
risk? Huge.
it was huge because I still today try to keep my mind sharp by doing math in my head rather than using a calculator. I could figure out a batting average in my head and that kind of thing. And
But can you make
but it
change at
was it was
McDonald's?
it was a big deal for me because it enabled me to understand the actuarial science in the business. I didn't say it gravitated me to the insurance industry, but it was a big plus. And I took math only because it came easy to me in high school and whatever. And I needed to get through university easily because I was having a good time. I was a party boy and taking math, it just worked out for me. But so I do a lot of that. I have a strong family life. I don't, my wife and I do some traveling, but it's mostly the home's comfortable. I've set it up to the point where I can go. I think every couple should have 6 television sets, which we do, one in every room, and so we just
So you're not conflicting with each
no,
other?
no.
Um,
I'm still a vociferous reader. I just read a lot, and it's no.
okay, so let's hit on that one for a sec. Do you have industry stuff that you read? So apart from pleasure reading, do you have stuff that you kind of go, these are my go-to spots to be reading? Like, so I'm going to go ask something totally weird. Like, is there a Canadian long-term care news that you go, I'm going to read that every month when it comes out to keep in touch with my potential long-term um,
No,
care
nobody
clients or
nobody does it effectively. The only site I really go to a lot to read is Canadian Group Insurance. That whoever runs that, it's got
oh
an
yeah,
effective.
thank you. Thanks for that little
Yeah.
plug there.
Seriously,
CGIB.ca.
since I joined on, I do look at that all the time and whatever. But I'm looking more. I can't remember. I think The Godfather was the last fiction I ever read.
Oh
I just
wow.
read nonstop nonfiction and mostly biographies, trying to learn things about how famous people did things or whatever. And I usually can glean something, even if it's something that I can't use, it's something I can teach. And I'm still doing that. My kids, as I said, I've got a very strong personal relationship with them. We actually like each other and we work very effectively together. So I spend a lot of one-on-one with each of them and different ideas for them that'll work because they are very different. My daughter's very much like me and my son is very much like my wife. So when my daughter loses her wheels and starts flipping out, my son just laughs and walks away. So that's why it works. They work together well because if they had the same personality, it'd be chaos.
He's a calming influence in the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. But it
Um,
just comes down to no matter what you tell them is that it's a way to solidify the service model. What can we do to improve the service model? You
and
know,
you in one of the very first sessions where I met you, you had kind of a unique little tool that you used that was kind of I guess I'd call the executive summary of renewals or of offerings when you was a prospective client, where you kind of summarized everything into one page. And too often,
yeah,
I feel like in our industry, we see people trying to overwhelm with the 80-page renewal document, which that
yeah,
data is important, but
yeah.
they're kind of leading with that. Maybe you share that little gem of an idea. I mean, if
I
people are
did.
looking for nuggets, yeah.
I developed this way to put things on one page, and I had a unique name for it. I call it the one pager. But so when
Okay.
I would present a quote or a renewal. I would come in with the 80-page document and basically say, we can go through this. Everything you need to know is in this document. I put it down. Here's what you really need to know, because every 50% of the time when I would present, I'm not presenting it to the owner, I'm presenting it to because some of my cases are bigger. I'm presenting it to somebody who has to take that quote up the line to talk to somebody else. And if they bring an 80-page document, they're not going to remember the key points that I want them to remember. So I put everything in a one-pager, and I just a couple of pages or a couple of lines about who MacNeil is and what we do. A couple of lines on we've compared with your current plan, and these are the improvements. You can put them in bullet form. Here are your rate savings. Here are your the service commitments that we make, and a 2 or 3 page summary. Everything they need to know is on one page. So she can take this upstairs to the boss, and she's able to intelligently say they do this, they do this, they can say this, because, and do you like them? You know, the boss will say, well, yeah, I got along well with them, and they've got these service guarantees, and they've been referred, and so. But the one pager, and then I do the same thing with renewals. I go in and say, all the claims experience, all the details are right there. Boom, here's what you need to know.
So the analytics in the place, maybe the finance guy maybe wants something out of the 80 pages, but most of the time it's going to be that. Keep it simple, keep it easy to understand, keep it focused. And it sounds like you spend a fair amount of time educating your clients as well. I mean, they trust you, obviously, they know you, but it goes beyond that because they know what they're looking at, and the fact that you make it simple and in the one pager.
How many times have we walked in to present a 20-page quote, and the guy goes right to the bottom page because he wants to see what the rates are. He's not listening to everything I'm telling him, the plus there. So that one page really got hammered home to me, and I get a lot of compliments about it, especially from the clients, about how simple this is and how this is easy to understand, because they don't have time. They don't have time to be going through 80 pages. Tell me what I need to know. Here's everything you need to know. Sign my name to it. I've had wonderful success with it. The kids that developed it, we still give them 2 pounds of documents that if you want to take the time to go through why your dental claims were up, here's everything you need to know about it in the capsule form. And I've had wonderful success with it.
I've taken that from you and from other sources and used it as well. And I work with a GMGA now that helps do my renewals, and they actually incorporate that as a kind of a one pager as well. So it's becoming, I wouldn't say it's set you apart necessarily, because it's almost becoming the thing you need to keep that relationship and everybody in the whatever the ecosystem happy. I mean,
it just goes further to develop the relationship, because the fact, besides the service, when I deal with these people, I know exactly what I'm getting. There's no hidden agenda. There's nothing hidden there, because everything I need to know is right here.
Exactly.
And, it's really worked out for me over the years.
So let's look.
I've had tremendous retention in the business, and I think that's part of it, because of the overall model that we do. I learn from everybody else's mistakes and say, don't make those.
And that's the best education ever. I mean, if you don't make mistakes, you're not learning.
No,
and but if you're can be lucky enough to learn from others, from their mistakes and their successes, that's fantastic. So looking forward, what do you see as the biggest challenges in the industry, and for the next people coming in? How great a business do you think this is in the next 10, 20 years?
There'll always be the need for benefit plans. I don't care how many government plans you put in. You can put in dental and you can put in pharmacare. There's still going to be a need for employee benefit plans. I see more and more companies probably going to try to learn from the mistakes that Zenefits made, and try to develop an online program so that people can easily access benefit plans. We have to I'm not worried about losing business or developing, because I got a service model here, and I'll convince people that when I'm out there, that use the internet example I had last night, you need somebody to talk to. We can give you service, so you'll always be able to talk to a living person, and we'll take care of your problems. We have a rule in here that we don't want you fighting with an insurance company. If you have any issues with the claims, you come to us, because we don't talk to a call center. We go in the back door and go to the person that can fix this thing. we really pressed that message. And that's not going to change over the years. You can have as much online as you want. And if you want to go online and save 10% and then have to put a full-time benefits person on to manage all the garbage that you have to put up with not being able to access an insurer, go ahead. You know, I had one client years ago, bought a big chain of nursing homes, and the first thing they did was they fired me. And now I find out that he's got a full-time benefits person and he's paying 80 grand a year to do what I was doing, you know, and that kind of thing. So you getting that message across that, yeah, things may change, and you may want to go online, but you're not going to get what you're going to get from us.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen that in so many forms. We've seen mergers and acquisitions over the years. Originally, you know, we had whatever 30 or 40 insurance companies that got down to 24, I think, now selling benefits. We saw the progression and growth of TPAs and everything as well. We've seen more recently National Pharmacare, National Dental Care, and the high cost drugs, things like that. The world is constantly changing, and it's hard to keep up, even if you're in this space, let alone employers. You know, all of a sudden, here's a hepatitis C claim that's $135,000. What do I do now, Laurie? And you become that go-to resource for the stuff that's changing, evolving, and becoming more complicated. I honestly think the more confusing and complicated the business is, the more space there is for that personalized service that
Well, I
you're
agree.
offering. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So if you had to, we got maybe about 10 minutes left or so. So if you had to say to the next generation just entering the business now, so it could be somebody young and starting out from scratch, or you had somebody who was, you know, changing from the insurer side or the investment side or the life side, and they wanted to get into group. What would your kind of advice be going forward, both in, well, in everything, and then whether it's in education, and kind of what they should consider as they go forward?
I would suggest to them that they evaluate their personal backgrounds and determine who do I know out there that could be of help to me. And we've all heard the stories, the insurers will say list your 20 friends and call them and that kind of thing. But if you know somebody, I knew one guy that was in long-term care, and it could have been a car dealer, could have been anybody. There must be somebody, you know, they can talk to them, because they may just talk you out of not getting into the business when you determine that, you know, there really isn't much of an opportunity. But I find that if you have the personality and the work ethic to put in, and really educate yourself on the business, know your business, and get in front of these people and invest the time. Because I didn't meet this guy and all of a sudden within a month or two I was rich. You know, it took, but over 4 years I had 16 facilities, 16 long-term care facilities, which really set me up, and then it expanded from there. But
and that's an important thing to say. I mean, there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into this. Like, I mean, there's, you know, we have some common associates in the business, and that, you know, one I remember, he used to say, "I'm the master of the 8-year close."
yeah.
Like, you know, like, because it takes so long to kind of build the relationship, build the trust, and kind of get this business. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think a lot of people step into the business kind of going, okay, I'm going to call them and I'm going to make the sale over the phone. And I used to always joke and say, if you make a sale in one call, there's probably a problem and you're going to lose it the next time somebody calls in one call. Like, if somebody's just willing to change, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. It can be, but most of the time it's short term, and you see somebody else make a better promise. But yeah,
I find it interesting trying to think about how are we going to develop the next core of good advisors, because where do they start? When I started, I had an insurance company hire me and teach me the business, and then throw me out there to make it or break it. And there's no branches anymore. Nobody branches. They aren't hired to train you. If you can get in out of university and apply to somebody like Manulife or Sun Life, they're always hiring. Get in the head office
yeah.
and
And
learn you know, if you have the opportunity, if you're out here in the West, go work for Blue Cross, learn the business from the core. That's one way of doing it, because I don't know how you can go to an MGA and say, I'd like to come on board, and well, what does that mean? Who's going to train me? What do you know? And
Yeah.
everybody's looking for experienced reps out there, but how do you get the experience?
Yeah, it is more difficult, but I mean, you did it, I did it. We
Yeah,
have people every day that are self-taught, self-learning. You have to be that inquisitive, passionate, questioning person
yeah,
to do it. I mean, and it takes time. It doesn't just
yeah.
happen. Um,
It's
but
very much an I business until you can really develop it, because the secret to my success now is my team. Like, I've got incredibly strong people that I had that in Omaha, and I got it here, and I've really been successful because of the team I have. And but you know, you have to put in the time
yeah.
to get there. And I
And
find too many guys that have said, "Oh, I tried it for a couple of months and I didn't like it." You know, well, geez.
yeah. And your team is bigger. It's not just your staff. Your team is your clients,
Oh
your
yeah,
centers of influence, your insurance company partners.
yeah,
You've had a long relationship with Group Health
yeah.
that kind of helped you, and you've helped them and become a partner with them. So you get to know the ins and outs of stuff, just by virtue of, talking to people and asking questions and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, what else do we want to talk about? We've kind of, just to summarize, I mean, you've hit a bunch of things that hit with me. Specializing, I love people that specialize. I think it's a way to go, both in the benefit side of things, but also in the markets that you hit. The learning and mentoring thing is always huge. Centers of influence, referrals, and basically, like many of us, you're a one-man show that grew and have
Yeah.
evolved over time. Um, what else do you think we should share with the next generation? Something good, something positive. What one tip, trick, or nugget would you say has kind of helped? I like the letter one, but is there anything else that I've kind of missed on today?
Anybody that is not in the group benefits business, you need to understand how different it is from the life insurance business, because we have a wonderful persistency rating. That means we get paid every year for that group. And if the rates go up 10%, so does our revenue. This is a very lucrative business, putting cards on the table. It's a challenging business. I find it interesting, but it can really set you up, because financially it's been a boon for us, because life insurance, you get a lot of money up front and small renewals, that kind of thing. And from what I know, and the same thing with money management, the benefits, if you're good at it, boy, I
Well,
would find a way to gravitate toward it. So
yeah. Small groups grow.
yeah,
There's the old joke of how do you start a small business? Give
yeah.
me a company with 2,000 employees and give me some time and you'll have a small business. Well, it works the other way. Like if you deal in the small business market, they're always growing. So you have inflation, trends, utilization, growth, and everything all working on your behalf.
Insurance companies are constantly having advisor meetings. They invite people to come. I went to an advisor meeting 8 years ago, and I met you. And I'm very reluctant to say this to your face, but I learned a lot from you, and I've been able to take some really positive things out of it, because you've really taught me to put the balance in my life. Because I knew you 10 minutes, and all of a sudden I found out you take 13 weeks vacation a year. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I worked it out. So,
You got new goals now.
but balance of life, that's really important. You can be successful, but I've got I have one consultant that I knew really well, and he's made a ton of money, and he's been very successful. And his fourth wife is very happy with the new Porsche that she's buying him. This stuff. Like, get balance of your life, boys. You can work this out. You can do it effectively.
And we've seen too many people pass away basically at their desk
Oh
trying to
yeah,
close another deal and not actually seeing
no.
life, their family, their kids, their grandkids, whatever. So, Lawrence, do you want to jump in? We've got a few minutes left with any questions or thoughts you have on the whole thing.
Certainly. Laurie, there are various size groups. They start quite small. David says that he specializes in small group, and they go all the way to mega group. You've specialized in long-term care facilities. Does that denote a certain size of group?
No, because I've got an 8 life case. I've got, I think, three that have gone, because a lot of these facilities contract some of the employees out so that they don't work for the facility. So I've got 3 that are under 25 lives. I have 2 that are more than 1,000 lives. So they're varying. And I've got one young owner that is super aggressive in acquisition. So every month he's buying another facility. So that's why when he and I are good friends, and every time I turn around, he's adding another 50 lives or 40 lives to it. So the size really isn't important. As I've said, I've started off with a small six-figure premium. All of a sudden, it's more than north of 4 million over the years. That's more good luck than good management. But it's you've worked it out. I've developed the relationships, and just keep. You never know the smallest guy out there. It's basically, if you write a 10 life group that's going to put groceries on the table for the next month. So go out and write another one. You write 10 lives a month as a new advisor, and just manage your expenses, and you'll do fine, because next year those cases will renew. We just keep adding 10 lives a month.
Apple started out with 2 employees.
Yeah.
I mean, great opportunity.
It's just set these goals for yourself that's reachable. 5 to 10 lives a month in the first year, and then just keep them, service the heck out of them, and then just keep adding. And all of a sudden, after the second year, you've got 24 groups, small, that kind of thing.
You never know where your next best case is going to come from.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Contract employees seem to be a growing issue. They call them, I've forgotten, not binge, but whatever they call them now.
Yeah.
The gig economy.
Gig. What do you do with contract employees?
I find the biggest employer that has contract employees, and I underwrite his benefit plans, and he's with me too. So he's got $5 million worth of annual premium. So basically, there's 4 or 5 contractors out here that will just go to all these facilities and say, we'll take over your kitchen staff, and we'll take over the same people. You won't have to give them the union plan. The thing about BC is that it's 100% employer paid and incredibly rich benefit plans. 175, 60 in dental, and huge LTD, and big life insurance. And the contractors say, you want to work for me? It's your 175, 60 is out the window. You're going to get an 80-50 plan with a $1,500 maximum, and no LTD or 5-year LTD, that kind of thing, which really brings the cost down. But
so those contractors basically become their own employment group.
Yeah.
So you've got a group there that's supplying to your group. So
the nurses are never contracted out. So some of these facilities, I have the office staff plus the nurses, and then I either have the contract employers with another with the other group, or I don't have them. They may be with a different provider. But apparently the biggest provider in the province is this company called ProAdmin, and we've had their benefit plan for 15 years.
And what happens to part-timers who work with these facilities?
The part-timers that are contractors unless they negotiate something, they're out of luck, because the part-timers are, when they're under the union, they're called casuals, and they're covered. So it's very hard for some of these people to come in to work on Monday doing the same work, but working for the contractor now, because you're making less money. You're making $2 an hour less, and you don't have the benefit plan you had before. And besides that, you got to pay either 25 or 50% of the premium. So it's a big deal.
A lot of people see the group employees as potential for individual sales. Does your practice get into any of that?
I refer them out, and that's how I get. I've had people come. We've probably written 12 life insurance policies on our books, only because the owner said, I need $5 million to term, and we go out and do it. But if you need any kind of sophistication, I go to the financial planners and I use and spin it off to that. And as I said, I've got 17 groups from them, from the three of them in just the past 6 years.
So you very much are a specialist and you mind your knitting.
And I've developed a strong relationship with a property and casualty company too, so that if one of my clients says, my business insurance is going through the roof, well, I got a guy you can call. And once again, it makes me look good because I referred him, and my buddy solved this problem. There's another reason why I deal with MacNeil. He referred me to the problem solver I had with business insurance. He also took care of my financial planning by referring Joe Smith, that type of thing. So
the value of having that network around you to help add value to your clients.
Yeah, and I build a strong network of top people, and we stay in touch. And once or twice a year, they'll get reciprocal agreements. I'll either get a group or I'll refer something to them, and it's just I've basically been very effective and surrounding myself with people that make me look good. That's it. Because you got to do that. So.
And it's a lot easier to do business with people who come by strong recommendation or call you and say, I need your help.
Absolutely. And it just basically solidifies my relationship with my client. And that's really why I do it.
Well, thank you, Laurie McNeil and Dave Petrarch. That's been excellent. This is the last presentation in the Meet the Masters of Insurance webinar series for 2024. We'll start the year on January the 9th, which is a Thursday as always, 11 a.m. Eastern time, with Justine Zavitz, interviewed by, that's a good question, Justine Zavitz, and then Libby Wildman will follow her. Jennifer Walker will be up on January 23rd, Kelly Adams on January 30th, and then through February, we have George Sigurdsson, Roger Thorpe, Sim Gakar, Mark Halpern, and then we're into March, and we're booking for March now. Thank you very much. We wish you all a very Merry Christmas, or a Happy Hanukkah, or a good Diwali, or a Happy Chinese New Year, or the very best of the festive season. However you want to take your rum and Coke or your rum and eggnog, enjoy yourself, and the best of the season. We hope you'll be safe and warm through the Christmas and the holiday season. And we wish you a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2025. We look forward to seeing you then.